about look at Diddy, for instance. Let's take a look at him. Let's take a look at, he has videos. He has videos of the parties. Now, what I've heard, which I don't know how much of it is in mainstream media, I don't really follow the story that much, but what I've heard from friends that are attorneys, friends of mine that have represented me before, agents and so on, is there's a bidding war going on.
The downfall of Sean Diddy Combs feels straight out of a Hollywood thriller. His empire of glamour and billion-dollar deals is crumbling under federal indictments, explosive court filings, and whispers linking him to one of music's darkest mysteries. Prosecutors allege racketeering, exploitation rings, and secret tapes that could lock him away for life. His name appears nearly 50 times in sealed police files tied to Tupac's Las Vegas murder. And now, while Diddy proclaims innocence in a New York courtroom, his former allies are finally turning against him.
That they don't want, if they was in any of those freak-off tapes, if they played a part in any of those Diddy sessions, they don't want it to get out to the general public to make up their brand.
Enter Gene Deal, Diddy's former bodyguard, who claims the story is far bigger than the charges. According to him, Tupac wasn't just a reckless hothead. He knew the setup was coming. He knew the bounty on his head. And instead of waiting to die, he staged his own exit. Deal says Tupac faked out his enemies, slipped off American soil, and built a new life abroad under another name. The ultimate twist? Even Diddy, the man who thought he had arranged the hit, was fooled. For decades, he sat on top, believing he'd erased his only real rival, never knowing Tupac may have outplayed him. If Deal is right, the East Coast to West Coast war wasn't just tragedy. It was a long con and the greatest trick hip-hop ever saw.
Big went through their thing, and I was big man. That was the extent of our beef.
And the clues were there from the start. Fans obsessed over the Don Killuminati, the 7-Day Theory and its haunting message, Exit Shakur, Enter Machiavelli. Rearranged, Machiavelli even spelled out AM alive K. For years it was brushed off as morbid artistry, but what if it was a code? A survival manual from an artist who studied Machiavelli's lessons on deception. Then came the oddities. The coroner's report listed Tupac as 6 feet 0 inches, 215 pounds, but everyone knew him as 5 feet 10 inches, 168. The autopsy photo looked blurred, almost staged. And the cremator who handled his remains? He retired immediately and disappeared forever. One vanishing man. One suspicious record. And one album that may not have been a requiem, but a roadmap.
I'm sorry, I'm just really, I'm in this moment right now. This is crazy. Sorry. People don't really know how much what it does to you when something that you love is taken from you and thrown away like it don't even matter, and then they move on with their lives and you're stuck. You're stuck during those years. You're still stuck 21 years later.
The stories only multiply once you look past the paperwork. Former security officer Michael Nice claimed he helped smuggle Tupac out after the Vegas hit, even alleging Fidel Castro approved a body switch to sell the illusion. Nice said Tupac boarded a jet with Panthers by his side, co-piloted the escape, and landed in Cuba alive. But before he could release proof, Nice mysteriously vanished. Coincidence or cover-up? Still, the sightings haven't stopped. Havana locals whisper about a man in a bandana and shades, older, broader, but with the same unmistakable eyes. Others swear he's been seen in Belize, even New Jersey. Online, grainy photos show Tupac standing next to Beyoncé or 50 Cent, easily dismissed, but hard to ignore. Even Tupac himself once joked, "Why you think nobody been arrested? Because I'm not gone." And his mother's cryptic words, "He chose to leave quietly," only deepen the mystery. Add the endless stream of posthumous albums, each sounding fresh, almost alive, and the question becomes unavoidable: did Tupac die in Vegas, or did he script the greatest disappearing act in music history?
And then what's the stuff that's happening with Wendy Williams? You think this is all connection too?
Of course!
All roads lead back to Gene Deal's claim Tupac wasn't blindsided. He saw the betrayal coming. In an industry where moguls acted as both kingmakers and enforcers, he refused to bow. When the bounty on his head hit millions, he flipped the board entirely. Machiavelli wasn't just a name, it was a survival code. The whispers say he staged his own death with a body double. The coroner's mismatched records. The rushed cremation. The chaos outside the hospital, not panic, but choreography. By the time Suge Knight stumbled out in bandages, Tupac was already gone, vanishing into the Caribbean night under new names and shadows. And now, as Diddy faces federal charges of trafficking and racketeering, the irony cuts deep. He may believe he pulled off the perfect crime in '96. He may believe he erased his rival. But if Tupac is still out there waiting, watching, then Diddy's entire empire has been nothing more than a hollow victory. Because the greatest twist of all would be this: the day Tupac walks back into the light, alive, ready to expose the men who thought they buried him. And nothing would haunt Diddy more than realizing the ghost he feared was never dead at all.
Unfortunately, we're all going to take a disgusting trip to his seedy, awful world. You know, the man has no class. He has no kindness in his dark, dark heart. And he's depraved. That's my opinion. This is a depraved, disgusting individual about whom I wish to hear nothing after this trial is done.
The discrepancies. The whispered confessions. The sightings. The autopsy oddities. They all collide into one chilling possibility: Vegas wasn't the end, it was the beginning. The bullets were just the cover for a disappearing act, executed with military precision. What if Tupac Shakur has been alive all along, hiding in plain sight, waiting nearly 3 decades for the perfect moment to return? If that's true, then Diddy's darkest fears are only now taking shape. Because behind the smoke of theories lies one undeniable thread: the Black Panthers. Tupac wasn't just a rapper caught in an industry war. He was born into a legacy of rebellion. His mother, Afeni, was a Panther. His godfather, a militant organizer hunted by the feds. With roots like that, is it really impossible to believe there was a safety net waiting? Some insiders say the Vegas shooting wasn't chaos at all, it was the trigger for a covert extraction. A network disciplined enough, connected enough, and motivated enough to rescue the most outspoken voice of his generation. And what greater act of resistance could there be than saving Tupac Shakur himself?
So, Terrence Howard appeared on the PBD podcast with Patrick Bet-David, and the episode, this premiered on April 4th. Definitely making the rounds because in this episode, Terrence Howard describes an interaction with Diddy where he says that he believes that Diddy was trying to have with him. Let's take a listen.
The theory gains even more weight when you remember Tupac's aunt, Assata Shakur, one of America's most wanted women. She escaped prison, resurfaced in Cuba, and remains protected there to this day. If Assata could vanish from federal custody, why couldn't her nephew follow the same path? Whispers say the very same channels that smuggled Assata to Havana were reopened for Tupac. To the Panthers, it wasn't just about saving a star. It was about protecting a legacy, the son of the movement. Every lyric against the system, every verse about refusing to bow, became proof he was more than an entertainer. He was a symbol they could not allow to be silenced. That's where Michael Nice enters the story. His account plays like a film: Tupac boarding a private jet, Panthers flanking him, adrenaline surging like prisoners breaking free. Nice claimed, "It was me, my brother, the pilot, Tupac as co-pilot, and 2 Panther guys on the jet. We took off and instantly knew we were safe." According to him, it wasn't a rogue operation, it was sanctioned. Fidel Castro himself allegedly signed off, granting Tupac exile under strict conditions: stay quiet, never reveal the truth, never risk Cuba being dragged into scandal.
Same thing for Jeffrey Epstein. Now, the interesting thing about the Epstein and the theory about Epstein is we know he filmed people for sure on that island. He has a lot of movies, a lot of films of people that are very, very powerful political figures, and entertainers, business people. So, do you really believe that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself? Of
course not.
Of course not. Yeah.
But here's where the plot thickens. Just as Michael Nice promised to reveal hard proof, he was suddenly gone. Fans don't see that as coincidence. Was it failing health, bad luck, or was he silenced to keep Tupac's secret buried forever? Even Nice's own colleagues admitted his passing came at the perfect moment, stopping any documents, tapes, or testimony from ever reaching the public. And the details he shared before his disappearance were chilling. A body switch inside the hospital. Large sums of money exchanged. A double used to play the role of a lifeless Tupac. Nice claimed the real relief came only when their jet touched down in Barbados, before the final handoff to Cuba. If true, it means the Vegas shooting wasn't the end at all, it was theater. A staged spectacle for the cameras, while the real man slipped across international waters. The Panthers supplied the muscle. Castro offered sanctuary. And Tupac himself delivered the deception. Together, the perfect trinity for survival.
I can't wait. I can't wait for everybody to find out what's really been going on in the background.
Life in exile is never as romantic as the rumors suggest. For a man like Tupac, who fed on crowds, thrived on reinvention, and lived for the spotlight, decades of silence wouldn't just be strategy. It would be punishment. Exile demands invisibility. And invisibility suffocates. Psychologists say long isolation reshapes a person. The fiery rebel of the 90s may have hardened into something else entirely, a man shaped not by applause, but by solitude, secrecy, and paranoia. If Tupac is alive, he's no longer the same legend fans remember. The Shakur who once burned like a blaze might now exist as something quieter, a slow, relentless ember, waiting for the right moment to ignite
There's
again.
different things that's not really beef though. That's just competitive.
Competitiveness. All right. So you and Diddy, you and Puff cool?
No, I don't really rock with him.
Okay.
And that raises the haunting question: if Tupac stepped out of hiding today, would we even recognize him? Not just in the lines of age, but in his very essence. Could a man shaped by decades of silence still embody the same ideals, or would he return warped by exile, carrying truths too heavy for the stage he once ruled? That possibility makes his return even more dangerous. Because what confronts Diddy may not be the Tupac of the past, but a version forged in shadows, sharpened by survival. So why stay hidden for so long? If exile was protection, why not return once the danger faded? That's where the story collides with Diddy again. Some say he gave Tupac a brutal ultimatum: vanish or die. The bounty millions for his head wasn't just rumor, but a warning that nowhere in America would be safe. Faced with that choice, Tupac chose disappearance. And in a twisted irony, it was Diddy's own ambition that may have pushed him into exile, transforming what should have been a bloody ending into one of the greatest disappearing acts in music history.
Is he this gangster that behind the scenes is that him? Or is that
Shout out to Wendy Williams.
Imagine the irony: the mogul who thought he erased his rival may have instead created the very conditions for his survival. For decades, Diddy flaunted untouchable wealth, crowning himself a king, even as prosecutors circled and accusers lined up with stories of coercion and control. And all the while, somewhere in the shadows, the man he feared most may have been watching, waiting, preparing. Whispers grow louder now. Some say Tupac has a hidden archive, unreleased footage, testimonies, written accounts, a time bomb that could obliterate what's left of Diddy's empire. Others believe he's been carefully planning his return, waiting for the exact moment when his reappearance would strike with maximum impact. And with Diddy's empire in flames, allies abandoning him, and federal charges closing in, that moment may be closer than ever. So here's the question that keeps millions awake: what happens if Tupac Shakur steps out of the shadows tomorrow? Would the sight of him alive collapse the last pieces of Diddy's empire? Would he reveal a hidden history that rewrites everything we thought we knew about the East Coast-West Coast War? Or would his return ignite chaos, exposing how far the powerful went to bury the truth? If that day comes, it won't just rewrite music history. It will detonate cultural history in real time. And maybe that's what Diddy fears most, not just the verdict of a court, but the return of the one man he thought he had defeated forever. So tell us, if Tupac reappears, does Diddy's empire crumble instantly? Or does the world rally behind the legend who fooled them all? Drop your theories in the comments. Stay sharp, stay curious, and remember, the next headline might be the one that proves everything.